like it's cold here. It's not. It's beautiful today. We are live 5:25. I'm early. Actually, I was going to do an early one and a late one, but it looks like we might just be doing a midway in between kind of thing. I was trying to earlier today. We my son had called and said, "Hey, there's a car show going on like right around the corner from our house. You guys should go over there and check out. There's a lot of cool stuff." So my wife and I like went over, walked over. I thought this would be cool. I'll do a video on a local car show. We'll go around and get to interview and talk to all the guys that are there with cool cars. But as we were walking up, everybody was already leaving. So it said until 4, and we went over there like at 1:30 or something. But if you guys have ever been to car shows, you know that if it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever, afternoon or whatever, guys kind of start getting tired of sitting there and talking to people about their cars, I guess. But there were a couple of them that were driving out, some cool old Impalas, and I saw a couple of Chevelles and a Nova there. So I'm sure that there was some cool iron there, and I wish I would have gone over earlier, but we were off doing puppy stuff, so which was also awesome. We started a little bit later on our hike, and it was pretty warm, so they got tired, but we let them play in the creek so that they could, they're golden retrievers, so the water is it's like heaven for them. So they get to play and chase the water and do all that stuff. So they were in heaven, and we've been waiting for a long time to be able to take the puppies out because they were too small and hadn't had all the shots. And then we've been waiting also for warm weather. Now it's like 85 or something, so it's beautiful, but even at 85, it's getting a little bit on the warm side to be having them hike up hills. They're little. It's still hike up hills in the sun. So we make sure that we bring them plenty of water, and we try to stay in the shaded area. And like I said, we tried to go early enough where it was only about 75, I think, when we took them out. But, nothing but good stuff. And last night, I obviously missed the live feed, but a couple of cool things happened. One is that I got recognized for a viewer in Dixon. I was there because my son used to he played for 4 years for the Dixon travel team for soccer, and his new team was playing his old team. So it was a big to do. But when we were there, I was there with my wife and and her parents, my in-laws, and we were stopping at a local place to get something to eat. And so I said, "Hey, you're Richard Holder," and came up and told me about his project, and just like I want everybody to do. And I wanted to point out that it's very cool. And even though when I get, invariably, if you have a video that gets 10 or 20 or 100,000 views or whatever it is, and you get a few guys that say negative things, I have never, ever had anybody that's come up and said, "Hey, I watch your show." I've never had anybody come up and say, "You suck, you're terrible, you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't be dyno testing." Everybody that I've met that's come up and said, "Hey, look, we watch your stuff, we love the LS stuff, we love the dyno testing, we love all that." They're all very polite and very professional and very awesome, because once they come up and they realize, "Hey, this is just like all my buddies that I hang out with when we're sitting around talking about car stuff. He's just that guy, and he just happens to have a YouTube channel." And once they realize that, it's we're like bros for life. So it's kind of cool. So that was cool. And my son's team the new team ended up beating the old team, but they've got to play the old team again next week, which will be and a couple of the on his old team, a couple of their guys were out, and so they're going to be back. So it's just a really good thing, because we're such good friends with the other families from his old team. In fact, they're going to be coming over after the game, after the next game. So we'll all get together and we'll do what parents do. We'll complain about refs and all that normal stuff. But it's awesome. But we need to talk about car stuff. So first of all, I talked to Dave at Basham Motorsports. Dave Basham Motorsports is doing all the machining and stuff on the Trophy 4-cylinder. And you can see from the photo, the motor is assembled. It is the only thing that's left is he said, "Hey, I want to paint this thing." He said, "I can't have it go out like this," because, Dave, he's a perfectionist, much more so than I am. And so he said, "I'm just waiting we want to paint it the right Pontiac color. So I'm waiting." And we ordered paint. So It's getting specialty paint for the trophy 4-cylinder. So the paint is coming in, and as soon as it's painted, it's ready to go. So I'll have to figure out a way to squeeze it in the dyno as soon as I can. Also, the cylinder heads are done for me to put cylinder heads, and I think all of I think I've got the head gasket, the cylinder head, the rockers, the camshaft. I'm pretty sure is there. I need to verify with the guys at WestTech to make sure that it's arrived. So basically, think I have everything for the L78 to run the L78 and do a video to make people happy, to show them how much power it makes, and we'll do this right. And I'll try to get as much data as I can. We'll try to, run the factory specs as much as we can and all that. I'm borrowing a 780 carburetor. We'll try that and make sure that it works. A lot of times with older carburetors, they, sometimes end up not working and they require rebuilds and stuff. And I'm not going to do that. If we put it on and we can tune it and jet it and it does the things that we're supposed to do, and it seems like it's in the ballpark, then we can try to use that data. We're going to put a, new style carburetor on it and run it, just because I want to make sure that the carburetor isn't holding it back any more than that carburetor might hold it back. Like if we run a 750, a new 750, like we did on all the other modern muscle cars on all the small blocks, and then we run that 780, and the 780 is maybe a little bit more because it's a 780 and not a 750, then we go, okay, that's something. If the 750 is down, 50 horsepower because the carburetor's not right, then we go, well, okay, we're just going to dismiss that as that being a bad carburetor. I like to test like that because I like to, give people the real numbers, and I'll try to make it as exacting as we can. I do have stock exhaust manifolds for it. They're not the original Corvette stock exhaust manifolds, so you can take that with a grain of salt, but they are stock exhaust manifolds, and we'll be able to run also long tube headers on them. I'll run the hookers that we have that will be Chevelle kind of chassis headers, kind of a header that you would put on there and replace the stock exhaust manifolds. And then obviously we'll optimize the timing, and then we'll probably go through adjusting the lash on the carburetor. So with timing and jetting and lash, we'll optimize what's there just to make sure that it's right. And then go, okay, look, if you got one that wasn't right from the factory, it could be like this. If you got one and did what every guy that had a 375 horse 396 did a little tuning on it to make it right. Although back in the day, I mean, a guy who's really good at reading plugs might be able to get there. I honestly, I wonder what the reading plug is relative to the actual air fuel during the run. And not that a guy couldn't nail it, because they did. They're really very good at it. But what I wonder is, when they're running it at the drag strip, let's say, because that's where you'd be doing, and that's where you'd be reading plugs, and you'd shut it off and at wide open throttle and shut it off until you get a good plug reading. But what I wonder is, what is the air fuel curve like through the whole thing, where you would be using it? Because you're launching, if it's a stick car, you'd be launching at some RPM. If it's an automatic car, you'd be power braking at some RPM. And at least in first gear, you'd be using some of the lower RPM range. So I would wonder, like I said, I would wonder what would happen, what the air fuel would be during all of that run. And that's where an actual air fuel meter would be kind of cool. And then a distributor makes it a lot easier, at least for tuning at the track. You just keep turning the timing up until it stops improving in mile an hour or ET, usually mile an hour. So when it stops doing that, then you go, okay, that seems like enough timing. Obviously, you don't want to get into detonation. But if you were doing that, you would hopefully have good gas in it. And then we're going to run poly locks on it and not the pinch nuts on it, just so there's nothing more frustrating than running stuff on the dyno and having all of your dyno results be skewed because one of the rockers had backed off a little bit. You're like, this thing doesn't seem like it's making very much power, but it doesn't seem like it's really clacky because it already is that, because it already has lash in it. And especially from the factory, if it's going to be in the low to mid 20s, it's going to be kind of noisy anyway. So we'll put polylocks on it just to make sure that they'll never back off, and that should work out good. But I'm curious to see what the stock exhaust manifolds, where the headers are. And then we have this comp cam that we can run it. We also have roller rockers that we can try on it. They're just roller tip rockers. Quite honestly, if I was going to do an upgrade, I don't think I would put the roller tips on there, because if it was my 396, I don't think I would put just roller tips on there. I would put roller rockers on there. If I was going to do a roller upgrade, I would do a roller fulcrum. That's, in my opinion, if you're getting frictional changes, gains from frictional changes, you would be getting them from that part of the rotation and not the roller tip. But you might also, with those roller tip rockers, be getting a more truer ratio. You know, when they're designing it, you would hope that when a manufacturer is designing rockers, that they would put it on a given camshaft, a test camshaft, or maybe multiple camshafts, and test it and find out and track what the actual lift curve looks like while they rotate it through. Oh, look, this is, you know, the factory one's varying from 1.7 to 1.61 up to 1.73 or whatever the numbers are. And you kind of would get a sweep going through the curve, going through the whole lobe. I would want to see that versus the roller tip, because maybe you don't get a whole bunch of frictional gain, but you might get some from the thing being, you know, like I said, a better or truer ratio. Obviously, if we stepped up to a 1.8 or, you know, a 1.73 or something like that, then we could improve the lift. But we do have that bigger camshaft, which is an upgrade, solid flat tappet camshaft from Comp. We can try that, and I would expect we would get gains from that. I'm not going to do any head porting or anything. That's all going to stay the way that it is, because I want to, when the motor's done, I want it to just go back together as a stock one and go, hey, look, if somebody wants to put this in their Chevelle or something, make me a good offer, and we'll get that done so that I can raise a little bit of money. So then I can, right behind that, do the LS6. We'll go through the same thing. And then I want to do the Buick Stage 1 455, 1970 version, you know, the high compression deal. So the question for today is, we have the trophy 4-cylinder done. The last time we ran it, it made almost no power. How much power? Well, we'll do it this way. So we had a camshaft ground for the trophy 4-cylinder. So we put a bigger bore in it. It has like a 400 bore. It's got a flat top piston with valve reliefs. It has a camshaft now that's gone up about 80 thousandths lift from where it was from the one barrel camshaft. And not just, if it was a good one barrel camshaft, it had like 330 lift, I think. The camshaft that's in it is like 420 or something. And it also probably has another 12 to 15 degrees of duration. So it's got more compression. It's got more duration. We didn't do anything to the cylinder head other than machine it. I don't think he milled a lot out. I'll have to check with Dave and see if we can figure out what the change in static compression is. I don't have that. We still have the factory 1-barrel intake manifold on it, although I have a 1-barrel to 2-barrel adapter because I don't have the 1-barrel that came with that motor. It was not included, I don't think. Or if it was, I didn't know if it was going to run, so I wanted to put a carburetor on there that actually ran. I might have one of those from the 292 6-cylinder, or from, well, no, those might be 2 barrels. I don't know if I have I think I have a 1-barrel for that too. So maybe one of those 1-barrels would work on there, even with an adapter or whatever I have to do to make that work. But like I said, I want to do some modifications to that manifold and maybe put multiple carburetors on that. But the other thing we're going to do is we're going to try another cylinder head. So we've got an aluminum Speedmaster head. We'll try that. We have I do have some other factory heads, but I don't know that I'm going to try any of those. That one already has a small chamber. I'll have to get the casting number off of that head, but it's already a small chamber. It probably doesn't need big valves. Although now it has the 400 bore size. But the aluminum head should flow way more than enough. Probably the factory head flows way more than enough, the kind of power that we're talking about, given this camshaft, because we really need a 224 or 230 cam in this thing to get it to make, Ram Air 3 or Ram Air 4, half of Ram Air 3 or half of Ram Air 4 kind of power, I think. So let me know what you guys think. But we are going to be testing the different intake manifolds on it. I probably will run a factory 2-barrel V8 manifold, and then some kind of a dual plane, and then some sort of factory 4-barrel dual plane intake manifold. We're just going to cap the other side. and then a single plane V8 manifold, and we'll cap the other side. And then we'll kind of see how it responds to these upgrades, and then decide whether or not we need to do a, some kind of super Ritchie intake manifold or something like that. So the poll for today is, will the rebuilt trophy 4-cylinder make that 150? So will the trophy 4-cylinder, the rebuilt trophy 4-cylinder, will it make more than 150 horsepower NA with that 1-barrel intake manifold? And we do have headers for it too. I have the stock exhaust manifolds and I have headers because those are just V8 stuff, just V8 Pontiac stuff. So that'll be easy to test. Okay, so here we go. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is that hopefully, have you guys taken a look at the video that I did the last time I did this on Friday? There was a video that I posted comparing the VORTECH centrifugal supercharger to the Kenny Bell twin screw supercharger on a 462 valve. So the idea was for people to pick which one they would rather have, on their maybe street motor or on the race motor or something. And I showed the differences in power curves because guys like to see that. A lot of guys think, guys that don't have a lot of experience with this, people have been telling them, yeah, I like the blowers. They got immediate boost response. Yes and no. Guys that don't understand all of this as well, think that applies to all the blowers. So they think that they put a centrifugal supercharger on there and they get on the throttle, they get immediate boost. Like the blower is immediate boost compared to like a turbo, and the turbo has lag. Well, you get in the throttle and you got to wait for the turbo to come on. Again, that's a yes and no thing. So on a big turbo, that might be the case. On a really small turbo, a lot of times especially this factory stuff, if you stomp the throttle down all the way, you can't get it to the floor before you see boost for some of these factory super responsive small turbo deals. And they're really good at doing that. So there isn't a universal thing that all turbos are laggy or that you get immediate boost response from all blowers. Some of them, yes, some of them, no, some of them more so than the others. So I like to show the differences in the curves and stuff. So that video is up. So if you haven't, please go check that out. And then we'll see what you guys got going on. Hello, hello, hello. Turbo Nissan. Yes, we do need to do that. I know we're already into April, and I have the Omni running, but I need to get the Z and the Mustang running. Spring's beautiful up in New York. Lots of body work happening on the Plymouth. That's good. Ooh, a Reliant. The Hermit's in the house. Is it Herman's Hermit? Australia's in the house. He only has to paint half. That's right, Dean. See, it should be easy, right? So you only need one can, I guess, right? Some sort of Pontiac blue. And I know that the Pontiac guys argue about which blue is actually the correct Pontiac blue and that there's a difference for the different years or something. Turbo Sentra, the oil problem was the oil pump. It was a junkyard pump, and it had trash in it. I damaged the crank, and the pump's bad now. That's not good. And and there's nothing wrong with getting them from the wrecking yard. We run stuff from the wrecking yard all the time. But if you have it apart, it's a good idea to take the pump apart and just check inside of it so that to make sure that it's not scored and stuff. Big Bang, Big Block Chevy, bring the 4-bar map sensor. I'm pretty sure the Big Block's not going to get there though. Former mine worker here. Uh-oh. Without detonation, you got no gold. Where did you work in the mines at, Dean? Did I see you on Gold Rush? Absolutely go with a full roller and also a stud girdle. A stud girdle on the trophy 4-cylinder. Probably what I would do on the trophy 4-cylinder is I would look to do a hydraulic roller, because we can use LS hydraulic roller lifters on there. We'd use probably link bar ones. 165 is the right answer. Don't tell anybody. The factory ones were rated at 166, but they had a 4-barrel manifold, and this one doesn't have that. 1-barrel YF, yes. I was chatting with you guys about a few weeks back about raising boost but gaining no more power. Happy to report it was valve related. Seat pressure is now 25 pounds higher and now 125 kilowatts. So you were getting into valve flow was the issue. So that's good. I'm glad. Thank you for bringing that up and telling us what the problem was and how it was solved. I get asked a lot about how boost pressure affects, do I need to run more spring pressure when we run boost? And I usually tell them on a typical LS, if you're running a stock camshaft and you're running stock springs and you're running 10 pounds of boost, that's not a problem. But if you're running a lot more than that, obviously, as we see, that we can get into problems. $145 horsepower, 168 horsepower. Barry, I think that the 4.3 liter V6 is a swap into a Chevette. I think guys have done that. Dual plane isn't going to work. Won't you be feeding 2 ports only? Nope. It'll still work. The Mustang is running a risk of taking gas in your bathroom. You having problems with it still? I'm going to dig up 196 IC Comanche 4-cylinder for you to compare. What head is on that? Need to see more boosted Mopars or any boosted Mopar, right? Thinking man, I saw the Ford V10 that was for sale, if that's the one that you sent. I am going to Florida for a snake hunt. I was talking to the guys from the car farm, and what I was trying to do was get my trip so I could go up to the car farm and dyno the 2.2, and then they could start sanding it and getting it ready to paint, and then I could go from there down to my buddy in Georgia, and then we could motor down into Florida. Florida. Yeah, definitely Florida for a snake hunt. I think I did flow the Vizard head. It didn't flow as much as I thought it was going to, but I'm still curious to see what kind of power it's going to make. Richard, did you make any changes to the cam position sensor you made for the 2.2? You hack the distributor and use a GM sensor. We are using a LS crank sensor on the distributor, and we're not using a cam sensor. Richard, if you do a lot of night driving to and from West Tech, you need the 4-high mod for the truck. Wire dedicated ground to the negative pin on low beams when they stay on when switching to high beams. Oh, so it doesn't go from one set to the other so that they all stay on? I don't really have issues of seeing at night, so that's not too bad. And I'd rather not blind other people. I'm pretty conscientious about that. I did a 2.8 in a Chevette. It was a tight fit. The head's the same as a 392 V8. I think it's just like the T4 and half of the 392. I just don't know what 392s, what heads they have on them. Ron, a couple of Chicago Shelby guys reset the front wheel drive Chrysler minivan record. I didn't know that there was that, but that's cool. They ran 1074. Nice. The L78 heads, the other ones that are coming off of, or that are off of the L78 are being repaired, I'm hoping. How big of a turbo are you going to put on the trophy 4-cylinder? We'll probably do a GT 3076 or something. It doesn't need to be big. I would kind of rather put a the Torque Storm on there. I'm sure when the Torque Storm guys see the trophy 4-cylinder up there and see that people like that they'll say, yeah, Richard, you know what? We need to do something with that. I mean, I have a bunch of their kits. Can you calculate your dynamic compression ratio using cranking compression? No. What's the max dynamic compression you run on Street 93? That's actually not a thing. And I would talk about this all the time because I get this question all the time. Dynamic compression is not the only thing that determines detonation threshold. There are lots of other things that go into that. Oh, Turbo Sensor, you got lots of glitter. Oh, AJ, yeah, to spot deer on back roads and stuff, but on the all of my, not all of my driving, 95% of my driving is on the freeway. In fact, all of it could be on the freeway if I went a different way. I do cut through a back way going through Rio Vista usually, and that's going through like the Delta area. But I haven't, there are deer out there, but you don't see nearly as many as you do in other places around there. Overbuilt, yeah. The V8 Torque Storm will bolt right up to this. That kit will mount. It mounts exactly the same because it mounts off 1-cylinder head and stuff, and so it would bolt right up. That's why I want to use it because I already have the blower, so I just need some of the mounting stuff for it. I would like to. I mean, it needs to have boost, right? It has to. It's a trophy motor. I think I'm going to turn this on. Turn you off. Get some airflow going in here. Hopefully that I don't get fan wash. It'd be a shame if it remained NA. Yeah, it's got to get nitrous on it, and it's got to get some kind of boost. I'm definitely gonna run a turbo on it, but because it has to have that, and it will look cool. And I think it would look coolest if I did a turbo with a Super Richie intake manifold on it and ran it fuel injected. Is kind of what it needs. Poor combustion chamber design is a big factor in detonation. Yeah, that's definitely the case. Hotspots, your octane, and I mean your specific octane, not that you got 93 octane from the pump, but what is it really, and what is that formula? What is the air temperature is a huge thing. Like, what is the actual air temperature going into the motor? Obviously, what is your tune like? There's lots of stuff that would affect it. What is your water temperature? The trophy 4-cylinder is made 3 or 4 years, I think. I thought you had to change a tooth or something on the 2.2 because you had an issue with the timing. Maybe I'm not remembering. No, we did have a problem. We did have a problem with the timing. We're trying to fix it, but it's not a cam sensor problem. I feel like a huge displacement of it for 4-banger will help it build boost very well. It will. It'll have a lot of low speed power, so it'll have half of what a V8 does. We think. Like to see Weber's on it. Yeah, I don't have a Weber manifold for it. Propane is more detonation resistant. Well, that's why I want to run it fuel injected. I'd like to run it on E85 if we run boost on it. I mean, if we're blowing through a carburetor and like with a torque storm, it'd be less of a problem because it'd make much less torque because of the rising boost curve, but it would be good. Any plans to run a ported aluminum head on the trophy 4-cylinder? No, there's some. Well, we have a ported head, or we have an aluminum head. We could do a ported version on that, but right now with the camshaft that we have, it won't take advantage of a whole bunch of additional head flow because it just doesn't have enough camshaft to do that. AJ, so your dad liked the Rambler. A 6-cylinder would be better because it's going to be bigger and 3 1-barrels on it. Yeah, that's good. Trophy's ready. That's right. Trophy's ready, eh? Oh, you wish E85 was available in your region? I mean, we could run it on 100 or whatever, or a mixture, or with octane booster or whatever, or just run it on 91, because I think that the compression on this thing is still going to be low enough where that's not going to be an issue. And we run them cold anyway. And whatever boost I run it with is going to have some sort of intercooler on it because I like intercoolers. I wonder how you could deactivate one side of a quadrijet. Why would we need to do that? For what manifold will we do that on? On the 4-barrel manifold? No, we want all 4 going in there. Yeah, they didn't have a Q jet, but they had a 4 jet, I think, on the quad 4. So somebody has a question for the crowd out there. He has a 2013 police pursuit vehicle with factory electronic fans. Does anyone know what temperature the fans turn on and when the air conditioning is turned on? How would you feel about running a 3rd gen LS157 on E85? I thought about it for the heck of it, but in reality, probably wouldn't be worth it. It wouldn't do much to an NA 57. I've run E85 on lots of Gen 3 LS motors, and I've never seen much of a gain on any of the NA ones. But I've never built a dedicated NA motor where we were running 13 to 1 or something, or even 11 or 12 to 1, where E85 might benefit us. It seems to be a benefit on the Coyote motors and seems to be a benefit on the Gen 5 stuff, on the direct injected stuff, even NA. But on boosted, it definitely makes a difference. Are you going to be on at 7 tonight? I don't know yet. Someone's thinking it's 205, 215 on the fan turn-ons. And that the fan, Ron is saying that the fan should come on when the AC turns on. I'm at 10.6 on 93 with a 125 shot. Yeah, the nitro shot is extra cooling, right? And then if you have a big enough cam, the static compression with a big enough cam helps you get away with stuff. You're about the limit of the stock bottom end. Oh, with that camshaft? I don't know what the specs are on that camshaft. So, Caleb, you're saying that your LS1 makes more torque than it makes horsepower, NA? That must be an automatic curve or something. Warfighter, yeah, the LV3 is kind of cool. And somebody just reached out to me and said that they had more information on LV3 stuff. Oh, that was with the shot on the dyno. Okay, that makes more sense now. I was going to say that those numbers are really high for an NA LS1, especially a stock bottom end. Well, anyone really. Blue Collar took a Silverado to the track last night. You're editing video clips right now. Very cool. The VXR 228, 230. So that's kind of like a sloppy stage 2 cam. And blue collar just said the same thing. How's our poll doing? 56% are saying no, that they don't think the rebuilt 4-cylinder will make more than 150 horsepower with a 1-barrel intake manifold. Shame on you guys. Greetings. Which is more important in terms of making power, the static compression or the dynamic compression? I don't think that those are competing with each other for what you're talking about. The dynamic compression, if you looked at that, I would rather have, I would make a point that a lower dynamic compression is going to make more power. Because if you have a fixed static compression, let's say you have 10-1, and you put a small cam in it, you bring the dynamic compression up to 11-1. And then you put a really big camshaft in it and bring the dynamic compression down to 8-1. The 8-1 motor, the 8-1 dynamic compression motors make way more power because it has way more camshaft in it. So the camshaft is going to make the power. The dynamic compression is going to come down. And then that's what I'm talking about. It's not that those two things are not like, well, which one of those is better? That's not it. That's not the question you want to ask. There's a better question than that. Have you seen any standalone setups for the Atlas? The MS3 Pro that I have that I run the 4.2 on should work for the 5 and 4-cylinder versions. A friend of mine is giving me a 2-liter turbo out of a Cobalt. I just have to decide what to do with it. Just put it in a go-kart, right? Somebody said, put it in a go-kart. So blue collar, did it do what either one of the your formulas suggested that it do, or did it do somewhere in between? Yeah, Carrie, because a real good example of that is we ran a big block, a 540 big block with a flat top piston and a big chamber head, like 120 cc chamber head. And so the compression was like less than 9-1. And then to make things even worse, we put a really big camshaft in it, or not big block standards, but a fairly big camshaft in it. So it was like 275, 285 kind of thing. Big camshaft, the kind of camshaft that everybody tells you got to run 12-1 static compression with that. You don't. It doesn't matter. So our dynamic compression, I never did a calculation on it, but our dynamic compression was probably 7-1 or something. And so it was terrible. But the motor doesn't care about doing calculations. And what it cares about is it has head flow, it has displacement. It doesn't have the compression that would help it make more power, but it has a good intake and it has a good camshaft. It doesn't have 5 of the things that it needs, but it has 4 of them. And it does really, really well. That motor made lots of power, even though we had very low compression. And there will be people that tell you that camshaft won't work with low compression. The camshaft will work with any compression. Will it work better? Will it make more power with more compression? Yes, but not because the camshaft has to be run with compression. Only because compression will add power to any camshaft. Doesn't matter what it is. Whether it's a really stock one or a tiny one. Like if you have a stock cam, which is where you could go smaller than a stock cam, but let's say that that's the smallest one. You got a stock cam, you go from 9-1 to 10-1. Did you gain power? Yeah, you certainly did. If you have a big cam and you go from 9-1 to 10-1, did you gain power? Yeah, you do, because that's what compression does. It's just like boost. It adds a percentage of the NA power. And the thing is that if you have the cam in it and then you change the compression, you're going to get a bigger gain because you have more to start out with. And if you gain it as a percentage of that more amount, you're going to get more. That's why people think that, these cams respond to compression. Oh, let's see. Yeah, Alan's right. If you went to the track and you had fun and you didn't break anything and you came back and you were shiny side up and had all the parts were still running, that's all good. How do you feel about David Vizard's LSA? I think he has his formula. It works very well for him. His formula would suggest a very narrow LSA for every motor. He doesn't really apply that. He hasn't done a lot of LS motors. But here's and this is the discussion I have to have all the time about this formula, is people want to, there are people that have yelled at me for this. I mean, they have been like literally word screaming matches, in comments. But what they don't understand, and I had this conversation with David too, and David doesn't really understand it that well either, because he understood what I was saying, but he doesn't know why people don't want more power. So I tried to explain to him. I'm saying, look, if your formula accurately predicts how to make the most power, let's say that that's true. I would want to see more testing, but let's say that that's true. That's not why people buy cams. What if somebody wants a camshaft that makes more peak power? That formula cannot produce a camshaft that makes the most peak power. What if somebody only cares about making the most peak torque? Does the formula only produce a camshaft that makes the most peak torque? If you have a camshaft that it can't make the most power everywhere. It can't make the most power down low, the most power up top, the most power in the middle, the most power at every point in between. There's no formula that I think that can do that. So there's going to be some sort of trade-off somewhere. But let's say that this is the best average power production. Again, that's not why people buy cams. I know that, and David, I tried to go over this with David, and he's like, but they should. I'm like, yes, I agree with you. If you were wanting more performance and somebody gave you a formula that could give you what you're describing, we won't even talk about that side of it, but let's say somebody could give you that formula, shouldn't you want that? No, they don't. That's why people don't buy camshafts that have really tight LSAs, except for guys that are doing circle track motors, the guys that are doing racing. A tighter LSA camshaft will almost always make more average power in the middle part. They do that, but they also do other things. They have terrible idle. They're not going to get good fuel mileage. They are going to have chop, which some people want. They're not going to work very well with stock converters. There's going to have a custom cam like that is going to be more expensive than a shelf cam is. So the reason that people buy camshafts is there's a lot of different things that go into their buying. What about cost? Custom cam is going to be a lot more. If a guy can buy a camshaft that gives him 90% of what we're talking about here, and it costs 50% as much, he's going to buy that cam. So that's not the end all be all thing to why people want cams. And then this goes into, I get into this discussion with people all the time about, well, this cam will make more power. I'm like, yeah, there's like a million cams that will make more power than the one that I tested. I didn't test that cam because I thought it was the best cam ever produced. I tested that cam because it's a popular cam. People would want to know how much power it makes if they bought it. And that's the information that I gave them. But people don't get that. They're like, well, but you're putting the motor on the dyno. You need to make as much power as you can. No, that's not what I'm doing. And that's also not why people are buying camshafts. And that's, like I said, the formula doesn't take the other things into account. And that's why other people that are in the cam business sell lots and lots of cams, because they understand the buying public has nothing to do with that formula. Blue collar, it was faster than the 1413 that one predicted, but nowhere near the 1296. Somewhere in between, right? We're thinking of a sand rail. That would be good, especially a turbo. That's a good little 4-cylinder. My 4.2 Land Cruiser made laxative power. 135, 217 foot-pounds. So that's pretty mild combination. 217 foot-pounds at 1,800? Compression gives a lot of bottom end back that a hot cam loses. I have a 5.3 2016 Silverado. 180,000 freeway miles. Take care of it. I'm having the trans rebuilt. Want to get a Whipple, no crazy boost. The thing that I would be worried about is the transmission. So you're going to have to upgrade the transmission to put supercharged, that's an L83, to put supercharged L83 power to that transmission. The transmission's got to be stronger than stock. What cam would you suggest? I think the blower is going to make more than enough power for what you're doing. And the factory VVT cam that's in there actually works fairly well. If you want more power and you want to bring the boost down and the power up, you can do that. Brian Tooley has some good L83 cams that fit, stock piston valve clearance. 62L92, the Truck Norris cam, was wondering about how much power it would possibly make, has rec port heads. Take a look at the, I don't think I've ever run a Truck Norris on a 6.2. I ran some truck cams on a 6.0, and that would kind of give you an idea. So if you look at a stage 2 truck cam on a 6-liter, and it had rec port heads on it, so I know now you're excited about it. Because you should be, because it's awesome. Stage 4 truck cam. Truck cam. Let's see. So let's pick a stage 2. So with a 6-liter LY6 with a stage 2 truck cam, it made 494 and 483 foot-pounds of torque. So it did pretty good. Truck Norris cam might be up a little bit from that and would certainly be up in torque. And with a 6.2, you'd be up even more. So you might be a 500 or more. I thought that David was telling me that formula was for flat tappet small block Chevys, and maybe I misheard him, but at least the 128 formula. He has another formula that they use, or some other thing that they plug information into to get the actual optimized cam timing. But I need to talk to him more about that. I want to, I need to understand more about it, what he's telling me before I can make comments on it. Let's see here. Variable cam timing, minimal chance of the best of both worlds. Richard DYNO Duke today. Oh, cool. Racer, what's up, man? With a micro squirt, 232 torque, 210 horsepower. Average power, 3,400 to 5,500. Nice. 92 pump gas. Are you still using that same intake, Dave? So blue collar, did it like flashing the converter better? Sometimes that works on heavy vehicles. Admiral, you didn't spend much time down the rabbit hole? You didn't find Alice or Wonderland? Still running 862 heads and the chopper copper cam. That won't make as much power, not as much peak power, as the numbers that I just gave you on the stage 2 cam on the 6-liter, because the 6-liter had rec port heads, and rec port heads will definitely make more power than the 862 or 706 heads on a 6-liter, and they'll make more than the 799s, and they'll be up quite a bit. And LY6 with 799s, I did that test. That video's up. They make less than a rec port. They make less than the LY6 heads does. So overbuilt, you're going to use Jaguar rods? It had 1.2 inches of vacuum wide open throttle. How big of a throttle body were you running, Dave? 210 horsepower shouldn't have required too much, but I'm thinking I always go over throttle body on those things anyways, so I would like put a 75 on it. Richard, did you get a chance to check out the Turbo AMC 304 Dyno? I did not. Let's see. Let's see. AMC 304 Turbo propane. Is it the propane one? Propane first. Is this on the sandrail or something? It's on a sandrail? Okay. Okay, you guys ready? Wall. No. Is this a short? Is there a long version of this? Well, why were the curves so jaggedy on the runs? I don't think on the last one that you did. I think it was straight on that one, but why was it so jaggedy? What was going on? Richard, I'll have to review the 799s. I thought they were rec parts. I ran that LY6 with 706 heads, 799s, rec ports. And when I ran that particular test on Brian Tooley's older truck cams, we ran stage 1, 2, and 3 on the 6-liter. I ran it with the rec port heads, and then I ran it with stock exhaust manifolds and with headers. I'm just going to verify that to make sure. Yes. Yes, it was with the stock LY6 heads. But like I said, I did run that same motor with 799s, and we ran it with. I did a ton of testing with that LY6 before we. This may have been after the Big Bang. I can't remember. You have a big V6 3800. Oh, so that's. I can't remember what size that is. Like 70 or something, 75. It's probably big enough for what you're doing. Did you see they put a couple of extra injectors in the intake of beer money? I've been thinking about doing that too. They tripped them with the cooler squirter. Very interesting. So they put them in the intake manifold to cool the charger. That's a good idea. Those guys know how to make that. They know how to make power. They know how to make that car work. I tried stalling and loading the converter. I get better times loading. Yeah, it's something you got to experiment with. Falling on its face after 4200. Did you ever run it on the? Do you have a chassis dyno curve on it or anything? Richard, we need to see the S6 V6 3800 and 4.2 liter. They need to be compared against the GM 3800. I should have grabbed one of those supercharged super coupe motors. You have to see the video. 2 extra 500 pounders. Cody, I want to thank you for helping out with what to do with my stepson's speed density Fox body. If I'd asked if I should keep it speed density and convert to MAF, we decided to go with a Mega Squirt. You can do that. I ran my car for lots and lots of years, for 20 years probably. In fact, to this day, it was an original Mass Air car, because it was an '88 California car, first year of the Mass Air, making it super special and valuable. And I ran it with all kinds of stuff, blowers and heads and cams and all kinds of stuff. Ran it to Silver State, did all that stuff. And never until the very end did I even put a chip in it. And it worked really well. Yeah, I don't remember if my my 88 was an A9L or not. I don't know if it was that, if it was that computer number. This is Admiral. Do you know what those heads flow or anything? Do you know out there if they're comparable to? I mean, wasn't it rated at a similar power output to the 3800? Or did the 3800 happen after that, right? So it might be a later version and make more power. I'm excited about the L78 going back on. I'm excited about the LS6 too, because now that I have the information on the intake manifold, now I really want to test and see what the difference between the low rise and the high rise intake manifold do. Not that guys may have put those on there back in the day. Anymore, everybody has, I'm sure, all the stock stuff back on there. Actually, if I had an old 70s Chevelle or something, I would not have the original motor in it. I would have that sitting somewhere sealed up in a bank vault or something. $3,800 and Super Coupe V6 were simultaneously in production in the early to mid 90s. Okay. So you doubled the horsepower of the Iron Duke, Dave? Yeah, nobody's gonna make a 700 horsepower 350 with a stock head and a flat tappet cam. James, the one place that GTP would not beat a Super Coupe was in top speed, because the GTPs were limited and a Super Coupe was not. A Super Coupe would go 140 plus miles an hour. And so would the Mustang. And somebody told me that the Probe Turbo would too, but I don't think that that's the case. Maybe the V8 Thunderbird did that also. Because I remember at the time Ford had a couple of 140 mile an hour cars. What gains can you get by going to larger valves in the 862s? Well, we did a test with somebody, and I forgot the name of the company. A guy sent us some 706 or 862s that he had done 2-inch valves on, and it did pick flow up. I don't know. I think we might have done a test on it. Yeah, if you reflash the computer, but from the factory they weren't like that. I know because I took mine up to somebody had so this was frustrating for me. So this is a little story before I go. I was at the Silver State, and we had back when I had Rammer technology, we had a GTP that had all kinds of stuff on it. So it had it had pulleys and exhaust and stage 2 mass air meter and a blade. It didn't have a camshaft in it, and it might have had ported heads at the time. I can't remember if those were on there when we did it, because we did have ported heads on it at one time, but I don't know if those came later. And a cold air intake and all that stuff. We took it out to the Silver State, and there was a guy out there that had a modified computer with the speed limiter taken off. I'm like, and he was only going to run like in the 110-mile-an-hour class. I'm like, dude, swap me computers. I said, mine will plug right into yours, and you'll still be able to go your speed. It's just that you won't be able to go really fast because you're never going to go that fast. Oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to go like 150 plus miles an hour. No, I don't want to do that. I'm like, you're such a weenie. Uh, 160 my GTP. Richard, does a turbo with some with higher back pressure mean it spools faster than one with low back pressure, but then gives up some power on the top end? That's typically what happens. A turbo that spools up faster usually has more back pressure. Admiral, so your Mustang's 165 miles an hour with spray, so you were running a lot of shot on it. The one thing that the Grand Prix really needed for the Silver State, it needed an intercooler. I mean, we had cold air going to the blower, but it really needed an intercooler. In fact, I think before we went to the Silver State, we had like a 3.0 pulley on it or something. And I think we put a 3.6 or a 3.4 back on it because we knew sustained runs that thing is going to be too hot. You couldn't reach the no button. Was it just too far away? So we're going to end our poll at 57% saying no. They don't have no confidence in the trophy. Utah, how could you have a 98 Mustang with a 97 PI swap? So was it a 99 swap or 2000 PI swap and 100 shot? And you still had problems with the LS ones. The LS ones did make a lot more power. Sammy, I'm not going to do a video on transmissions that are mating up to high horsepower stuff. I do mostly engine dyno stuff and not drivetrain stuff. But we talk about that on the live feed a lot, that it's pretty easy to make 1,000 horsepower, but it's really expensive to buy 1,000 horsepower transmission. Saw a great grudge match today. 67 Camaro 454, 67 Firebird 455, Pontiac won. So somebody had more in their car for whatever reason. I don't think the trophy 4-cylinder, I don't know if it will make 150 with the 1 barrel on it. I have right now it has an adapter on it to put a 2 barrel on it only because I didn't have the 1 barrel. I'm going to try it with a 1 barrel, but it needs more than that. It needs multiples of that to make power. And maybe we'll make that work. Maybe I'll weld it so we can put a 2 barrel on it. How do you feel about carburetors, the annular boosters? We've run them a lot at WestTech. Bike style ITBs, that would be good. Would you ever test an EcoTech 2.2? I've never hooked one up on the dyno, so I just don't know how much trouble it would be. Use a China 2300 Ford 2-barrel. Well, I have the Holley 4412 2-barrel, which is what I have the adapter for, I think. And that's more than enough. Could you set up water meth with a blow through and use a nitrous wide open throttle switch to activate? Yeah, you could activate the water meth with a switch. It doesn't care what you activate it with. I've got, so before I go, you guys might be able to help me answer this. So I've got and I'm going to take this apart and diagnose all this, but I want to we'll throw it out there for you guys and see if you guys can nail it. Right now on the Trail 90, I have a misfire or stutter. So when you go to throttle, sometimes it does it at steady throttle, sometimes it does it under acceleration. It seems to do it more after the thing's warmed up. So obviously we're going to check, fuel and timing and all that. Let me know what you guys think it is. Is it, I think this thing has a point set in it. So here are the things I'm going to check. I'm going to check fuel flow, obviously, to the carburetor. I want to make sure that it's not clogged, that it's just not a fuel flow issue to the carburetor. I'm going to take the carburetor off. I'm going to take the bowl out, make sure, again, that there's not stuff in there. I will take the carburetor apart and just make sure that there's not, and blow all the things out and everything, just make sure that there's not something stuck in there. Obviously, I will have to check the points and make sure that I'll have to see what the gap is and stuff and see what the dwell is. But let me know. Yeah, I'll blow the carb out, and that's what we're going to try to do first. And like I said, the other thing that's happening is the fuel line is running. Well, no, that's kind of a factory loop. I thought the fuel line might be running a little high and not, but it's still always below the fuel tank. So I don't know. I like stuff like this. I like figuring out what's going on. So Predator square bore carb. Stang, you're working on a CT90. Cool. I was wondering what would happen if I pressurized the tank to feed the carburetor, if we could run it as a blow through carburetor. Check valve flash. Yeah. That could be. That's a good point. And that's one of the tune-up things that when I look at all these videos that they're suggesting, but of all the things that are affected with heat, that probably is number one. Has anyone ever tried to hook a gear drive to the hot side of a turbo to overdrive the blower section? Yeah, that's what a centrifugal supercharger is. I wonder if 243s would help a 6-liter over 706. I had that videos up. You can see what they do. The tank fan is another thing because it has another line running off of it. So I'm just gonna blow through that stuff and make sure that it's okay. Check the condition of the battery. It's got a DC ignition system coil that runs directly off the battery, not the stator, like many people think. Good, I'll check that. My brother brought an ultrasonic cleaner for small engine carbs. Running a choke, it seems to, I start it with the choke and then turn that off, but whether the choke's on or off, it still does the same thing. It seems to be worse after the motor's warmed up. It seems to be worse with the choke on. Check the fuel. That's why I wanted the petcock. That's what we want to check. And I've tried adjusting it from both from the normal flow and reserve. Have you seen the oilless turbos from Comp? Yeah. Shadow Ops, when I did the test, and that video is up, but when I did a test of the 799s versus the 706s on the 6-liter with a cam, a pretty good sized cam, the 799s made more power at the top, but the smaller heads made more power up to 5,000. There's a 750 blow through 85, a good size for a 427 Windsor, 7500 Novi 2200. The 2200, excuse me, a Novi 2200 is like a 1200 horsepower blower, I think. If that's the case, you could probably get by with a 750. Bad plug. Well, I'm going to check all that. Right now it has. I'm gonna take the plug out. I'm gonna change probably the plug wire and the plug. I want to look at the plug and see what's going on with it. See if it's burned out. I don't know how old it is. But all that, yeah, that's also part of the checking thing. Blue collar, you got a custom cam. And the other thing that happens with this thing is it, and I just broke the Kickstarter, or broke the Kickstarter lever because I have so much power. So I need to buy another one of those. But this thing doesn't like to, after it's run, doesn't like to be kickstarted, but will start every time I push start it. Utah, we just talked about Vizard's cam equation. We went into depth on it just a little bit ago. Will the trophy 4-cylinder with a turbo make more than an SD455? It should make more than a stock SD455. Because what's a stock SD455 rated at? 220 or something? Because those are in the early to mid 70s, right? 310. Okay, better. Yeah. 310 to 290. So that's more than I thought. So I think we can make more. Well, it probably would make a stock one run on the engine dyno rated at 310 probably would be more like 360 or 370 maybe, the way that we run it on the engine dyno. I rolled to the trap in my 75Z50A. So it's a modified one at 53 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. My Trail 90 won't go 53. I tried some top speed runs. That's why I think it needs some work. Even in my Aerotech. My Super Richie Aerotech. It's got a CT70 engine on it, yeah. It's got a big block on it. It's got a big black Honda. So blue collar 224, 232. That's like that crane one that I run a bunch. That cam works pretty good. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will be back tomorrow. I won't be back tonight for the 7 o'clock. So we did run late. On the Trophy 4, do you have the rest of the drivetrain? No, I don't. I don't have the cool, like, twisted drive shaft and all that stuff. I just picked up a 125 4-speed manual engine for my CT70 frame. That's what I need. Is it for my my 90? I just need a Hayabusa engine in there, right? Yeah, he's done. He's out. A race Z50 with a moped transmission. Nice. Is the moped trans? Is that a centrifugal clutch? I know. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know. I don't do that. My mama raised me better than that. Time to go. I guess we'll see you guys all tomorrow.